Welcome to The Money Puzzle. I'm your host today, Randy Major, and joining me from Family Wealth Planning Partners, I almost said services, but planning partners are Brian Ramsey and Eric Douglas. Welcome. Eric, how are you today?
I'm fantastic, thank you.
And how about you, Brian?
Couldn't be any better.
All right. So the last several weeks we've been working together doing these shows, and we've had some incredible shows with, they're getting a lot of attention. The phone lines have been ringing and people are calling to book their consultations. And when they call, they have a lot of questions. So we decided today to put a whole show together just based on viewer questions. So this is going to be really fun. So we encourage you to stay with us over the next 30 minutes because you might have the same question on your mind that we will get to today. So should we just dive right into it?
Let's dive right in.
All right. First question is from Bill in Oldham County. So Brian, do you want to take this one? He wants to know, are taxes on my retirement going up?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. We get that a lot. And the answer, Bill, is we don't know. We truly don't know. But there are certain examples we can look at to say, well, we don't know what, we know what taxes are today. We don't know what taxes are going to be in the next 3, 4, 5, 10 years. We have no idea. But we know what they are today. So can we implement strategies today to take advantage of the tax rates today? Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll give you a quick example. So we had a gentleman that was in not too long ago, actually he and his wife, and we were looking at, he was in his, I think his late 50s or so, but we were looking at tax strategies. And that's one thing they had concern was, hey, I know I'm going to pay a lot of taxes, when I get into retirement. What does that look like to me? So we did a financial plan. And the issue to him was that while he's in a higher tax bracket now, even though he's still working, he has amassed a huge amount of money in his 401k, which is great. They've done a great job. They've both maxed out their 401k, so they have this huge 401k balances. What they didn't anticipate, while it was very tax-friendly while they're working, it's a huge tax issue when they reach 72. And they're both about the same age, so they were going to essentially take what they call required minimum distributions, which are required distributions out of your 401ks when you reach the age 72, or it's 72 today. And so what we showed them was, yes, you're in a high tax bracket today, but look what happens when you turn 72. And we don't know what that rate's going to be. It could be a lot higher, it could be lower. We don't know. I doubt that's going to be lower. Could be. But more than likely, it's going to be a lot higher. And look at the impact when you're 72. Look at the amount of money you're having to take out, when you turn 72. So one of the strategies we put in place for them was that when they retired, which was going to be in the around 65, I think it was a couple years difference. But anyway, when they retired, they didn't need to take any money out of their 401ks. We said, but let's implement a strategy to take money out of your 401k because we know we're going to pay less tax on it than waiting until you're 72 and potentially paying a lot higher tax on that money. So there are some tax strategies you can put in place. But don't misunderstand. When you get into retirement, you're paying taxes when you take money out of your IRA. There's no way around it. But there are strategies you can put in place to help mitigate that.
It's actually one of the biggest fallacies that most people have is they think in retirement, I'm not making as much money, I'm not going to pay as much money in taxes. Wrong.
Oh boy.
You actually, that's still the number one expense that most retirees have. A lot of people think it's actually healthcare costs. It's not. It's actually taxes. Tax man doesn't go away when you decide to stop working, unfortunately.
So is this a common misconception then for most of your clients?
Absolutely.
Oh, goodness. Well, that's very good to know. So thank you, Bill, for calling in with your question this week. And we're going to move on to the next one. Thanks for your answers, guys. Okay, Jennifer from J-Town says, I'm wanting to take my Social Security at 62, but I plan on continuing to work. Will my Social Security income be taxed? Again, with the taxes.
Yeah, well, it's a running theme, sure. Well, so this is a little bit of a two-tiered question.
Okay.
So if you're looking to take your Social Security at 62 years old, which is when you first become eligible to receive Social Security benefits, but you are going to continue to work, you don't need to be worried about tax. Well, we'll get to tax in a minute. You need to be worried about the earnings test first. So once you get to about $20,000 in income, for every $2 that you make over and above $20,000, your Social Security benefits will decrease by 1. So let's say, for instance, if you make $60,000, well, there's a $40,000 difference between 20 and 60. So for that $40,000, she's going to actually lose $20,000 of her Social Security benefit. So she won't even receive it in the first place to even have to pay taxes on it.
Okay.
Now, the earnings test goes away at your full retirement age. So usually right now, for most people that haven't claimed it yet, it's usually between 66 and 67, or for 67 years old. So that earnings test goes away, and you are eligible to receive your Social Security benefits, whether you're still working or not, and receive the full amount of your Social Security benefit. Now, taxes. Yes, when you look at the double tax, what double taxation means literally is the Social Security tax. You spend a lifetime doing everything you're supposed to do. You pay your taxes, you save money, you pay into the system, you pay the Social Security tax. And then what happens is when you receive it, you get taxed on it again. It's the literal definition of double taxation. So the way that Social Security taxes work is if you are receiving income in any way, shape, or form, for a married couple, it's about $44,000. And income can count as many different things. So if you're receiving distributions from your retirement accounts, that counts as income. So if you're reporting income over $44,000 as a married couple filing jointly, up to about 85% of your Social Security benefit will be treated as taxable income, and you will have to report it.
Okay. Do you want to add to that?
No, that was awesome.
All right.
Yeah, that was great.
We'll just move on. Thank you for your answer. Okay. Next we have Edward from East Louisville. Okay. My neighbor told me he does not pay taxes in his IRA. Is that true?
All right, so this is a good one. Yeah, I'll take that one because this is an interesting one. And there's really two aspects to that. Number one, we just covered it, right? You're paying tax on it. There's no avoiding taxes. We hear that a lot, and there's commercials that run in our. He knows what I'm talking about. There's commercials that run in our area where it says, "Oh, we can avoid the tax bomb." No, you can't. You're paying tax on your money when you take your money out. It just depends on what your tax bracket. As we mentioned, are there some tax mitigation strategies you can put in place? Yes, but here's the bigger issue with that question. He got advice from his neighbor, right? We say this all the time. Seek financial advice from a professional. Your neighbor's not a professional, more than likely, right? Unless you're my neighbor, or Eric's neighbor. But for the most part, you got to go seek the advice of a professional. It's no different than I use the analogy a lot. My back hurts, right? And you got a pain in your back, where you're not going to go see your dentist and go in and say, well, I got a back problem.
Right.
He's a doctor, right? So you would think he would be able to, he can't. That's not his specialty. And so you got to make sure you get the right advice from the right person. And go seek the advice of a professional and say, okay, here's my scenario. I'm going into retirement. I've got this 401k. How am I going to be taxed? And we can walk you through that.
Well, you bring a good point. It makes it a lot more difficult today when we just have access at our fingertips to all sorts of information. We really shouldn't be relying on Google when it comes to our retirement plans.
Well, it's interesting because you can go to Google or any other search engine out there and type in your question. You're going to get 20 different answers. So how do you know which answer to choose? And everyone's going to have a different opinion on all sorts of different things, and you can see that on social media as well, right? But yeah, it's really important to get. And if you need to get a second opinion, that's valuable too. I mean, there's wisdom in getting multiple opinions.
And back to the doctor analogy, I mean, I always get a second opinion, so why wouldn't I with my retirement savings?
Absolutely.
Of course.
Absolutely.
So we have to take a quick break. We're going to come back with many more viewer questions. But before we go to break, I know you still have that offer for the first 10 callers watching the show today. Eric, do you want to tell them what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. So first 10 callers, 844-900-5210. Give us a call, schedule an appointment, come in for a complimentary, comprehensive financial planning session. Bring all your puzzle pieces to us. We're going to talk about your life insurance. We're going to talk about your investments. We're going to talk about trusts, estate planning needs. We're going to talk about all of these different things, and we're going to put those puzzle pieces together for you in our office so you have a clear, coherent picture and you can understand truly what your retirement path is going to look like.
Folks, if you want to retire with peace of mind, I encourage you to pick up the phone and call today. It's 844-900-5210. We have to take a very short break, but we're coming back with more viewer questions, and one of those questions could be yours, so stay tuned.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. This is a $999 value that we're giving away complimentary to the first 10 people who respond. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have by running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review today.
Welcome back to The Money Puzzle. My name is Randy Major. Today I'm chatting with Brian Ramsey and Eric Douglas, and they are taking all of the questions that have rolled in over the past several weeks. We've had some amazing shows with such great information, and the viewers are so grateful. Everyone's hungry for information, aren't they?
They are.
So we can just go ahead and jump right into the
Yeah,
next
let's do
caller.
it.
I know the viewers are really interested. Okay, Ms. Kane from Floyd's Knobs wants to know, is it okay to add my daughter to my checking account?
Okay, we see this one a lot. And the answer is no, but sort of, kind of.
Okay.
So anytime we hear that, we often ask, why are you wanting to add a child to your checking accounts? And really two things come up. Number one, they say, well, in case something happens to me, I want to make sure that, my daughter can step in. In this case, the daughter wants the daughter step in to be able to, pay the light bill and keep the lights on and, and pay the bills. Or number two, if I pass away, I want that money that's in that account to go to my daughter, right, or to my other kids. And that's just not. It's just not a very good idea to do it. And the reason it's not is because if for some reason, and I know this is, the likelihood of this happening is very small, but in the unlikely event that her daughter were to go out and make a mistake and have litigation filed against her, the assets that are in her name, which happens to be her mom's checking account, could be at risk for that litigation. So we don't want to do that. Now, how do we solve it? That's kind of the bigger question. You solve it through, one, having a power of attorney, financial power of attorney. What that does is accomplish the first goal, which is something happens to me, I want my daughter to be able to continue to, pay the bills and keep the lights on, all that good stuff. That's what a financial power of attorney allows you to do.
Okay.
You become incapacitated or you're not in the capacity enough to make financial decisions, that person can then act as you. So it solves that first problem. The second problem is, not a problem, I guess it's a problem, well, it depends on who you are, but if you pass away, right? So if you pass away, you can add what they call a transfer on death or a payable on death, depends on what institution you go to. But it's a provision that you can add to a checking account. And by the way, it can be single or joint checking account, makes no difference. Okay. Where essentially you're adding beneficiaries. What you're not doing is you're not adding your child onto the account, you're simply adding them as a beneficiary. Okay. So in the event you pass away, there's a beneficiary form, passes outside of probate, the assets can go directly to the kids. And the other thing that's interesting is when you have your child on your checking account, you have to have a really, really good relationship with that child in order to add that child. Because
it also depends what age this child is we're talking about.
Well, yeah, because I used to work at a bank, so I know how this works. If you add your kid to your checking account, the kid can go into the bank and take money out of the account and there's nothing the bank can do.
Oh, gosh.
But if you add them as a beneficiary, it doesn't work that way.
Okay, well, that's such good information. Thank you for clearing that up, and thank you for Ms. Kane for calling in over the last week. We're going to move on to the next question, and I'll throw this one to you, Eric. Marcia from Bullitt County wants to know, can I transfer money from my IRA to my Roth without a tax penalty?
Well, let's maybe define taxes, because some people might think a tax is a penalty in and of itself. But to be clear, there's no actual penalty for transferring money or converting. In this case, it's actually called a Roth converting money from your IRA to your Roth IRA. Now, is it a taxable event? Yes. So you're taking money from an entirely pre-tax pot of money, which was your IRA. Most people contribute to a 401k. They roll it over into an IRA when they retire or leave their employer. That's still pre-tax money. You've not paid a dime worth of taxes on those assets.
Okay.
You put it in pre-tax, it grows tax deferred. Fantastic, right? Until it's time to pay the piper at some point. Unfortunately, that always happens.
Oh.
Someone's going to pay the piper at some point. So if you were to do a conversion, and there's many reasons to do it, but if you were to do a conversion, you would have to pay taxes on 100% of the amount that you convert into your Roth IRA, because Roths by nature are after-tax contributions. So you have to pay the tax up front, move it into a Roth IRA. Now it grows tax deferred once it's in a Roth IRA, and it comes out entirely tax-free when you decide to take a distribution. It's also passed on as a legacy to your kids or to your beneficiaries as a tax-free legacy as well.
Yeah, now I add one other piece. So exactly what he's explaining is one of the tax mitigation strategies that we use with clients. Does it make sense to take money out of your IRA, pay tax on it today, so we know what the tax ramification is, and put it in an account where we can then take distributions later in life tax-free. And I'll tell you that we don't do that in a vacuum, because the one thing that we see is a huge issue is financial advisors giving tax advice or giving advice that have tax implications, because we can't give tax advice, let me make that clear. But we give advice that has tax ramifications, and then they turn around and go to see their CPA, and their CPA is like, what are you doing? Why did you do that? And vice versa, right? Sometimes CPAs will give, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that, and then they come see us and we're like, well, what are you even talking about?
Right.
So the one thing we do that we make it an effort every year is to, at the end of the year, if we're doing any sort of tax mitigation strategies, we want to make sure to get on the phone with that tax preparer and say, all right, here's your team. What can we do? How does this going to impact this client? From a tax perspective, does this make sense? Because we still have to get the numbers. We can't produce those numbers. The CPA has to. And so we have to get the numbers for the clients, again, for them to make an educated decision. So we make it a point to work with their outside advisors to say, how does this ultimately affect them?
Yeah.
When we're trying to add trying to adopt any tax mitigation strategies within a client's portfolio, we are typically doing it through a macro lens. So we're not looking at this individual year. That's typically what most CPAs and accountants do.
Right.
They're trying to save you money in this year that they're doing your taxes. When we're implementing tax mitigation strategies, we're looking at the best tax solution for you over your retirement, over the course of a long amount of time.
And I feel like a lot of folks don't know this, that there's such a difference between tax preparing and tax planning.
Oh, absolutely.
Very much.
So common questions I feel the viewers have that we're getting to today. So this is just such a wonderful show. We do have to take another commercial break before we come back with more questions. But there is a very special offer for the first 10 callers today. Eric, let's tell them about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So give us a call, 844-900-5210. Give us a call, schedule an appointment, come into our office. We would love to sit down with you, and we'll evaluate all of your different puzzle pieces. So we're going to talk to you about all the different facets of your entire portfolio, not only necessarily just your portfolio, but your life, what your goals look like, what you want to accomplish. We're going to talk to you about all of those different things. We're going to start piecing that puzzle together for you.
Folks, we're going to be right back, but we want you to know that the phone lines are open. So if you have questions of your own that we can address in a future show, please do give us a call, 844-900-5210. We will be right back. Please stay tuned.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back to The Money Puzzle. I'm your host, Randy Major. Today I'm talking to Brian Ramsey and Eric Douglas of Family Wealth Planning Partners, answering all of your questions that we've received over the past several weeks. We've had some really wonderful shows, great information, and the audience is just hungry for more. So let's just jump right in and get to more of these questions. Eric, I'm going to throw this one to you. Okay. We have Gary in Louisville. He wants to know, why do annuities have a bad reputation? I like mine.
Yeah, so this is a bit of a loaded question. So when you talk about lightning rods in our industry, there is no bigger lightning rod than the word or the term annuity. So take a step back. When you talk about annuities, they tend to be oversold.
Okay.
There are a lot of advisors out there, and let's be very clear and very upfront about why they're oversold. They pay the highest commission to the people that sell them, to be very clear. That's not necessarily bad in and of itself. They can be very good products. Mm-hmm. There are so many different types of annuities. You have variable annuities, fixed index annuities, basic fixed annuities. There are all kinds of new ones coming out, RILAs, and there's some really good annuity products out there, but there's so many to choose from. There's a large, and we've talked about this in previous shows before, the financial media, is pushing all these different types of products, and that's why it becomes so confusing to the average consumer. In a nutshell, though, I think annuities tend to be very much oversold.
Okay.
They can be very good products, and maybe you do have a good one, and that's fantastic if it fits within your plan. Okay. And that's the key. We are not annuity salesmen. Now, we can utilize them when needed. It is a tool in our toolbox. We use it as needed, but the problem is, for so many other advisors out there, they typically, what's the term? When all you have is a hammer, everything is a nail. There you go. So it's there's a lot of people out there that tend to specialize only in those types of products. We are going to be far more holistic in the way that we approach the planning process.
Now, there might be viewers at home that don't even know really what an annuity is specifically. They may have heard of it, but could you just quickly explain exactly what it is?
You want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So annuity is basically an insurance product. Mm-hmm. And there's really multiple types of annuities. And so we heard this term the other day. I kind of liked it. So I hope I'm not stealing. I hope it's not copyrighted. But annuity is sort of the back end phrase of what an annuity is. It's just the word. Okay. The most important piece is what's in front of it. And so there's all kinds of different varieties of annuities. And really, they're designed for specific purposes. You just have to know what that specific purpose is. The issue that we have in our business is that, and I'm going to use this a doctor analogy, okay? Because I like it. I've used it a couple times in here.
I like it too, yeah.
So again, let's go back to the doctor. I've got a back pain, right? So I go into, and this is your typical, not typical, but there's a lot of advisors that are Dr. A, okay? So you walk in, hey, I've got a back pain, and Dr. A says, well, here's a prescription, and we're going to do a little bit of, I don't know, exercise. And you're like, okay, well, what if I told you it was my knee? Oh, it's the same thing. You get the same prescription, and you get the same exercise regimen, and pretty much that's what everybody gets. Everybody gets the same thing. We know clients that go see these guys, and they'll say, well, they all get pushed the exact same thing. That's Dr. A. Dr. B says, well, let's go through and same problem. I've got a back problem. Well, let's run some analysis. Let's do a CAT scan. Let's do some X-rays. Do blood work, and then we're going to get the results back, and we're going to sit down and talk about putting together, a regimen of maybe some prescriptions, maybe some exercise regimen, but we're going to talk about it and work through it. That's really how we approach it. Okay. It may be that you don't need exercise. It may be that you need it. It could be that you need annuity. It may be that you don't need it. Okay. And so that's how we approach it. Is it's got to fit in. It's a piece of the puzzle. It's got to fit in the puzzle. If it doesn't fit, not every single piece fits in every single client's portfolio. Were you going to say something?
I was just going to add one more thing to your. I was going to further your point a little bit, because the very first thing you said was spot on. It's an insurance product, right? So many people get confused because they think it's an investment. It's not an investment. They are not designed to be investment products. It is an insurance product. They're sold by insurance companies.
Great. Well, I'm glad you cleared that up.
As long as you understand that difference and can clarify between the two, it does have a place in a portfolio for some people, and it can be very appropriate. It can be very, very, they can be very successful, but not everyone is going to need one.
Thank you, guys. We have time for one more question. We have a caller this week, Steve from Louisville. He wants to know, what happens to my parents' IRA when they pass away, and will I have to pay tax on that money?
Yes, you will. Again, it goes back to the same question. The tax man's going to get his money. It doesn't care who pays it. But yeah, in an IRA, so the rules changed a little bit. Was it last year or so, or back in 2020, the rules changed slightly? Okay. So as a beneficiary, child of a parent, you could do what they call a stretch IRA, meaning you could take the distributions over the course of your lifetime. So we would see really IRAs could be potentially multi-generational, but that's not the case anymore. So now it really, speaking of puzzle pieces, that's one puzzle piece that's sort of changed the planning aspect in our world, because there's no more stretch IRA. So when you pass away as a beneficiary, as a child of a parent that passes along a 401k, you basically have 10 years to take it out. And so you can take it out all in one lump sum, or you can stretch it over 10 years. But it really has changed the dynamics, because we are seeing larger and larger 401k balances that get passed down because, really my parents' generation, they didn't have the time to build these huge 401ks. So the transfer is not that big of a deal. But now we're seeing huge balances, of folks in their 60s and 70s that are now being transferred down. And you could be the beneficiary and be a very high income earner, and all of a sudden have this money that now you're going to have to pay tax on it. So yeah, you will pay tax on it. There's no getting around it. There's some tax mitigation strategies, but for the most part, yeah, he's going to pay tax on it. All
right. Well, thank you for that answer. So Eric, we're at the end of the show. Let's remind the viewer of the offer.
Yeah, once again, so please give us a call, 844-900-5210. Schedule an appointment to come into our office. If we need to do it over Zoom, that's perfectly fine as well. But we would love to chat with you about all of the different puzzle pieces that make up your portfolio. We want to talk to you about your investments, your insurance, and all of these different things that you have concerns about. We're going to make those puzzle pieces fit together in a nice, clear picture so you can understand what your retirement path looks like.
To the viewers at home, thank you so much for joining us today. Call the number on your screen, 844-900-5210, and please have a beautiful rest of your day. We'll see you.